Welcome to Spoken Injustice, where we put the criminal justice system in the dock. Today's video is part of our news session. We will look at the latest news from the Post Office Inquiry, the Letby Inquiry, and finally, briefly, catch up with Mr. Malkison. So, settle in as we journey through. Starting with the Post Office, is Sir Williams running out of patience with the Post Office? He certainly showed genuine frustration in an announcement that he made on the 16th of November 2023, which was reported in the Inquiry newsfeed section as follows. Sir Williams has expressed his considerable regret and frustration this morning as he announced that planned evidence from former Post Office lawyer Jarnail Singh and former Fujitsu engineer Gareth Jenkins will have to be postponed due to further late disclosure from the Post Office. The two key witnesses for the inquiry were expected to give evidence on the 20th and 30th of November 2023, respectively. It is uncertain now when they will be heard. In particular, Sir Williams stated that in the case of Jenkins, the Post Office disclosed over 3,000 new documents on the 15th of November 2023. In light of this substantial disclosure, he concluded that it was practically impossible for the inquiry to be ready to receive Mr. Jenkins' evidence on the 30th of November. He added that given the obvious importance of Mr. Jenkins to my inquiry, I have decided there should be a substantial period of time which should now elapse before I try to reschedule Mr. Jenkins. He further qualified that timing by stating that some months are likely to go by before I call Mr. Jenkins to give evidence, because I want to be absolutely certain, or at least as certain as I can reasonably be, that every single relevant document relating to him has been disclosed to all relevant parties before his evidence begins. Sir Williams also highlighted the reasons why he made this announcement orally rather than in a written notice as follows. I felt it necessary to do it orally so that those who are watching can see for themselves how frustrated I have become by all that is going on in relation to disclosure.
Inquiry lawyers have worked apace, including during evenings and weekends, to review and process documents received late, and the hearing timetable has been kept updated. Mr. Singh will now be heard on the 30th of November 2023.
Issues with disclosure are indeed a recurring theme at the Post Office, a topic we'll delve into further in an upcoming video when we analyse Duncan Atkinson case's evidence heard by the inquiry in October 2023. Be sure to activate the notification bell below to be notified when our videos are out. Also, support our mission of spreading awareness about deficiencies in our criminal justice system by liking this video. And finally, participate to our roundtable discussions by subscribing to our channel and leaving your comments below. Thank you. With that out the way, and still on the Post Office inquiry set, it was extremely unsettling to hear the evidence given on the 24th of November 2023 by Diane Matthews, a Post Office investigator. She was the lead investigator in the cases of Miss Janet Skinner and Mr. Noel Thomas. In relation to the case of Miss Janet Skinner, she told the inquiry that she did not believe Miss Skinner had stolen any money, and there was no evidence to prove it. She also said that she conveyed her view to a post office assisting lawyer, Juliet McFarlane, in the prosecution division. Despite that, however, Janet Skinner was charged and convicted. I'm sure you're all familiar with Miss Skinner's story, but for those who are not, Miss Skinner worked diligently for the post office for 14 years prior to the allegations of theft and false accounting being brought against her. She was eventually charged, convicted and jailed for 9 months in 2007, leaving behind her 2 teenage children. Her conviction was eventually quashed 14 years later in April 2021. She gave evidence to the post office inquiry on the 25th of February 2022. In her first witness statement dated the 16th of February 2022, she revealed how this whole ordeal has left her with a permanently damaged nervous system. She did not see her teenage children for the whole duration of her imprisonment. She said, "I didn't allow either of my children to visit me in prison. Prison was the one memory I could protect my children from having to relive." It beggars belief that the case against her proceeded even when the investigator assigned to her case felt there was no evidence to support the charge. Mr. Matthews was also questioned about a series of email exchanges between the post office case management team and Fujitsu in relation to a statement which was sought in the case of Mr. Noel Thomas, who, after being accused of stealing from the post office, insisted that the shortages in his branch were due to Horizon IT failures. Mr. Ward of the post office case management team, under Ms. Matthews' request, approached Fujitsu and requested an expert statement that expressly refuted those claims made by Mr. Thomas. Mr. Jenkins, a Fujitsu expert, provided a statement in which he mentioned 3 possible causes as to why a zero-value transaction may be generated by the banking system, including some sort of system failure, adding that such failures are normal occurrences. Mr. Ward was not happy with the response and found references to system failure concerning as potentially damaging the post office. Instead of the concerns being translated in immediate disclosure of the position to the defense, as it constituted material that undermined the prosecution case, he insisted that the statement be amended as to omit any reference to system failures to ensure that the post office was not embarrassed at court. And he did not stop there. He suggested to amend the statement as to add a paragraph in which the opposite was stated, namely that the computer was operating properly at all material time. Although Jenkins initially hesitated to make the sweeping statement that the computer was functioning correctly, clearly rendering the first part of his statement useless, Jenkins' final statement presented a court contained no reference to system failures and in fact asserted that to the best of my knowledge and belief, at all material time the computer was operating properly. As we know now, Mr. Thomas was ultimately prosecuted, convicted and sentenced to 9 months imprisonment on the 6th of November 2006, having pleaded guilty to false accounting following a plea bargaining exercise with the post office. He was told that legal aid will not cover his expenses if he were to go through to trial, and that by pleading guilty he would avoid a custodial sentence. Truly shocking. In his first statement dated the 12th of January 2022, he said that he joined the post office as a postman when he was 17 years old. He had served at the post office for 42 years by the time the prosecution was brought against him. He was also a counsellor and a pillar of the community. He was disqualified as a counsellor following his conviction. He spent his 60th birthday in prison. He lost his house, he was deprived of his private pension and had to declare bankruptcy. He said he lost everything. That is the human side of wrongful conviction. His conviction was eventually quashed after 15 years in April 2021. If appropriate guidance, codes of conduct and statutory requirements had been appropriately implemented, neither Miss Skinner nor Mr. Thomas, along with their families and friends, would have had to endure the hardships they faced. This underscores our position that it is not the rules that need changing, but rather those responsible for administering justice. As highlighted in our video, Private Prosecutions Problem Solved, which you can find linked in the description below, the Justice Select Committee examined this issue and put forth several recommendations, including subjecting organizations that bring a significant number of private prosecutions to regular inspections. Had the post office been routinely inspected, this issue would have been revealed from the beginning, sparing many sub-postmasters, sub-postmistresses and their families and friends from decades of undescribable suffering and enduring lasting traumas. However, the government declined this recommendation, stating that we are not persuaded the inspection regime proposed in Recommendation 8 will be a proportionate response. I am confident that the sentiment is not shared by the over 700 sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses caught in this scandal, or their close circles, and we concur with their perspective. Turning now to the Lucy Letby Inquiry, a dedicated website was published on the 22nd of November 2023. I have included the link in the description below. The first point to note is that whilst this was formally referred to as the Lucy Letby Inquiry, it now appears to be known as Thirlwall Public Inquiry. Secondly, the chair now invites applications for core participant status from any other interested organisation or individuals. It is open to anyone to apply for core participant status, but the chair will then decide whether they meet the legal criteria in Rule 5 of the Inquiry Rules 2006, and having regard to the fact she must act fairly and avoid any unnecessary cost. A core participant is a person, institution, or organization that has a specific interest in the work of the inquiry and has a formal role defined by the legislation. Core participants have special rights in the inquiry process. These include receiving documentation, being represented, and making legal submissions, suggesting questions, and receiving advance notice of the inquiry's report. You do not need to be a core participant to provide evidence to the inquiry. The core participant application window will be open from Wednesday, 22nd of November until Monday, 11th of December 2023. Applications should be made in accordance with the core participant protocol. In our video Lucy Letby Inquiry, How Far Will He Go?, which you can find linked in the description below, we mentioned that the Royal Statistical Society, or RSS for short, wrote to the chair of the inquiry to volunteer its expertise on the subject. We are eager to see whether that offer is renewed by the RSS under the core participant protocol. It will then be for the chair to decide whether they meet the legal criteria under Rule 5 of the Inquiry Rules 2006, which states that the chairman may designate a person as a core participant at any time during the course of the inquiry, provided that that person consents to being so designated. And subsection 2, in deciding whether to designate a person as a core participant, the chairman must in particular consider whether the person played or may have played a direct and significant role in relation to the matters to which the inquiry relates, the person has a significant interest in an important aspect of the matters to which the inquiry relates, or the person may be subject to explicit or significant criticism during the inquiry proceedings or in the report or in any interim report. In the meantime, we have learned from major news outlets that police are investigating deaths at the Royal Sussex Country Hospital in Brighton under Operation Bramber. We chose to bring attention to this news with the sole intention of cautioning against the emergence of moral panic. History has shown that such panics frequently result in the enactment of unnecessary and perilous new laws, along with an irrational pursuit of scapegoats in an effort to quell the panic. Finally, we conclude this news session on a high note. We were delighted to learn that Mr. Malkison is due to guest edit BBC Radio 4's Today programme, which will air this Christmas between 23rd of December and 1st of January 2024. Each programme will include an interview with a guest editor, and each editor will have the support of Today producers and reporters to bring their ideas to air. According to The Guardian, in his episode, Mr. Malkison will explore the psychological impact of wrongful detention, the barriers to education in prison, and how his passion for science and astronomy helped him while he was incarcerated. I hope you found this video interesting, and if so, please like it and subscribe to our channel to support our efforts to bring the often ignored issue of wrongful conviction to a wider audience. Also, join our networking hub at spokeninjustice.net to become a valuable piece of the puzzle in our collective journey towards a more just and fair criminal justice system. Join us again next week. We look forward to usher you as we sit and rise in this unique trial.